Hey songwriters, welcome back to At Home Songwriting. I'm Chad Schenk, and today I'm welcoming hip-hop artist Bowdizz. And this is going to be fun because we're going to talk to him about his music, some of his inspiration, how he got started, his new single that just came out called Play My Part, lots of stuff that we cover. This is a great interview for someone who is interested in kind of the process of a new hip-hop artist, and I think you'll enjoy it. So let's go. Welcome to At Home Songwriting.
Hey, thank you for having me. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, I know that I had originally heard about you just through like Instagram or some sort of social media because you were in Minnesota. I'm in Minnesota. Somehow the Minnesota music thing crossed paths. But, for people who haven't heard of you, how would you describe your music?
Great question. I was just going to ask you how you did come across me.
Cool.
I would describe my music as, it's hard to put one word on it, but it's definitely like lyrical and meaning based. But I kind of make a lot of different stuff sometimes too. It kind of depends on the mood that I'm in. So it's kind of hard to describe it in one specific like niche. But I guess I should be able to explain this better. I should know this.
How
No,
about
it's very like lyrical and, self-reflective, passionate, meaningful.
so some of the things, like as I was listening through different songs before this, I saw that you had a song, I believe, called Third Eye. You have a song called Human First. You talk about things like incense and like more, and you mentioned sort of like intuition and things like that. Is that kind of something that is at the center of what you write about and kind of who you are, or how does that all kind of play into everything?
I think with that sort of thing, that's been a stronger theme like the past couple years, just because for a while I took a step not away from music, but I kind of reached a point where I realized I needed to do have some self growth, and that had to happen outside of music because I always had this mindset of I got to put as much time into music as I can to improve at it and that sort of thing. But what I didn't realize was when you take the time to do actual like self work and look inward and that sort of thing, it reflects in the music naturally. So I think it was just I reached a certain like threshold a few years ago where I had a mindset shift and I started focusing more on myself, and that kind of snowballed into making music that covered some of those themes, and those words and stuff get brought up pretty often because it's kind of the space that I'm in currently.
Cool. Well, I definitely resonate and align with a lot of that stuff too. So it's, probably not an accident that I discovered you and your music. So that's really cool.
That's awesome. Love to hear that.
So let's rewind back to like back in your life. Do you remember when you knew that you wanted to make music, or like I can remember back in my life when I kind of discovered that, wow, this is what I want to do. But do you have that moment in your life as well, or what's that like for you?
I don't have like a very specific moment, but I remember the time when the click happened, and it was when I was like a freshman in college. I just had an epiphany somewhere around that time that was like, I know this is what I love to do, and if I don't actually pursue it, I know that I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. So it was kind of like I don't have a choice, even if I feel like I'm not ready or whatever fears I may have had to start pursuing it. I had that something clicked in my head that was like, I'm going to regret this if I don't see what happens at least.
Sure. Growing up, then did you listen to music? What are some of your, I guess, influences, or what music do you like?
Yeah. When I was like really little, I didn't get that. I listened to basically just what my parents were playing on like the radio and stuff. So like ACDC's someone that comes to mind, and like Tom Petty, and
Yeah.
I maybe took a little bit of inspiration from some of that stuff, but I would say more I got into like listening to my own music in middle school and high school, and I was really into like Mac Miller, Eminem, Tupac, uh, a lot of like lyrical rappers, kind of like that,
Cool.
in high school, and that was what really got me inspired and got me into music and kind of discovering the kind of stuff I like to listen to.
Do you consider your music to be hip hop? Is that, if you had to put a genre, is that what you would call it, or sort of how would you categorize it, the music that you make?
Yeah, I think it falls into the hip hop realm. I think hip hop it can kind of feels like a broad term just because it's so saturated and there's so much different different styles within it. But I would definitely
Yeah.
say it falls into hip hop.
Cool. Were you ever a musician, or are you a musician? Do you play any instruments, or what does that look like for you?
So this is a great question because the way it happened for me is it's a lot different than most people, and it's just kind of the way it happened. I guess it was meant to be this way. But I started freestyling really before anything. One of my friends in high school, he kind of like forced me into it, and that got me into it. And then I started writing and I started recording, and then I got to a certain point where I started to learn to mix my own stuff. And then after that, I went back even further and was like, okay, I want to learn how to produce beats. And then after that, I was like, okay, I want to play an instrument. So I've been learning piano for the last like year and a half. And that's the only instrument that I actually play. But it's kind of funny because I went backwards as far as
Cool.
like a lot of people start with an instrument and then they transition into an artist and that sort
Yep.
of thing. And I felt like I just kind of went through that process backwards.
So I know you said you started freestyling, which is obviously a skill in itself, because some people, if you said freestyle something, they would just clam up. Did that come easy to you?
Um, not at first, because like I said, my friend who kind of pushed me into it, like I was really uncomfortable with it at first, but after hanging out with him and it was just me and him kind of rapping, I started to build more of a comfort to it, and I actually saw like that I felt like wow, I can actually keep it going. Like the aspect of freestyling to me is kind of like the idea of juggling thoughts and juggling words, because you throw one up and then while that one's out there, you're thinking of the next rhyme. So once I like kind of saw that I could keep it going longer than like some of the other people, like I built a certain level of confidence with that. But at first I was definitely still like very, nervous when people would ask me that sort of thing. Like that trust and experience was built over like practicing.
So you said after you had freestyling, you started to actually write some of the raps or some of your songs. Were you writing to other people's tracks at that point, or what did that process look like?
Yeah. So usually I think some of the earliest stuff that I wrote, I might have like wrote some acapellas and that sort of thing, but it was definitely like beats I would find on YouTube or songs that I liked, like the instrumental for songs that I was familiar with. That was definitely like what I started with when it came to writing.
Um, and people would call that top lining, obviously, because you're writing a vocal line over, an existing track. So once you started deciding to write your own stuff and you were kind of coming up with your own songs, then you said you started to make beats. What was that process like for you?
That was very I would hands-on isn't the right word, but basically, have you heard of, I mean, I don't know what DAW you use, but I use like FL Studio.
Okay. I use
Um,
Logic, but I'm familiar with FL
nice.
Studio. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically with that, I are you familiar with Splice?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I heard about Splice and one of my friends that worked on music with was like telling me about it, and I just saw how it worked, and I just found a keen interest for, like, I basically, when I say I started making beats, I'm saying I literally found samples from Splice and then like drum loops and like put them together that way. Like,
Cool.
and a lot of people would say that's not even producing, which I totally understand, but that's kind of where I started from. And then from there, I learned to get more hands-on with actually producing and customizing each individual layer of the track.
Cool. No, Splice is I have a membership to Splice and I use it for certain like drum patterns or, you know, different grooves and stuff like that. So that's what it's there for, right? Like
Right.
it's a
There's
tool.
nothing against that. I just know like some people who are like very experienced producers would look at that as like that's not producing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I love Splice.
Cool. So, how long have you been making music, would you say?
Uh would you say making as in recording, or making as since I started writing?
I would say since you started writing. How long have you been writing?
Um 9 years, probably, maybe a
Cool.
little more than, yeah.
And you said that you've kind of discovered over time that this is really kind of what you're drawn to do, what you're called to do. What are some of the goals or like the point that you're at now? I mean, you've been releasing your own music online, which we'll talk about in a minute, but kind of what is your goal with what you're doing?
My goal is to be able to do it full time. That is, I guess I should be a little more specific than that, but like ultimately, I want to be able to eat off music. I want to be able to eat off my own brand and business centered around music. And I guess I'm open to however the universe lays that out for me, as long as it's in relation to music. Because I have my own like LLC for my artist,
Cool.
for my name, and that sort of thing. So like that's in place business wise. As far as how the specific revenue I'll make it, I'm open to what that may be. But ultimately, I want to make it full time. I want to be able to live off of music.
Cool. So you just released a song, very recently, um, called, is it Play My Part? Is that the name of the song?
Yeah,
What's that song? How did that song come to be and what's the idea behind that one?
that one is honestly more of a fun one. It's not meant to be super deep, but I think like it was about a year ago. I was listening to beats from a producer I like on YouTube, and I came across that one, and I got really inspired. And I typically don't write to beats like at that tempo. Like that was a little quicker than I normally go, but I really liked the first verse that I wrote. I really liked it, and I just kind of went with it from there. But I would say, as far as like the meaning of it, it's just like, yeah, I do me basically. I play my part. This is me. I guess it's not meant to be that specific track's not meant to be thought of as like that deep conceptually. It's just more of a fun one.
Cool. So did you do all of the production? I mean, obviously you said somebody else created the beat, but did you record yourself, kind of do all the mixing and all of that, or what does that process look like?
I recorded myself. I recorded myself at my home studio here. So what I
Cool.
normally do is, I would say 95% of the time, I record here, and I kind of sit with it and make my own demo of it, and then I'll usually send it off to my homie Miles, who will mix and master it for me, and then he'll send me. We'll kind of go back and forth. I'll give him some edits, or I'll go in there with them, and we'll get the final mix and master, and then I'll have the
Cool.
final.
Yeah, it sounds really good. So I was curious if you were doing that or what that was. So it's good.
Thank you.
It's really good. So back to kind of process then. So let's say you are sitting down and you want to make a beat. So you're pulling maybe Splice. It sounds like you're venturing into even maybe playing some of your own parts and expanding kind of production. Um, do you have an idea when you sit down, or do you kind of just let whatever flow, or what does that process look like for you?
I would say it definitely varies. But for the most part, like the best stuff that I've made is kind of letting it happen, is like showing up, getting in the mood, and just starting writing and kind of seeing where it goes. But there are times too where I'll sit down and I'll kind of like have an idea in mind, or have a direction I want to go, or like maybe I'm really feeling like I want a really jazzy sounding type of beat to write to. Sometimes I'm inspired by those sort of things, but I would say like the majority of the time it is showing up ready to see what happens and embrace the unknown of where it could go. And usually when I enter in with that headspace, that's where I've made some of my favorite songs.
Cool. And obviously you just released a single. Are you kind of in the mode of releasing singles, or are you an album person, or what does that look like for you?
I've been an album person in the past, and I don't have anything against albums. I just feel like with like kind of how the music industry works, or like how people consume music nowadays, I don't think it makes sense for me to put out like a full length project until I have like a solid fan base. Because when I did put out an album like 3 years ago, it was very conceptual, and I put a lot of work into it. And I just felt like people are so ADD when it comes to music that most people don't even like have the capacity to sit through an album. It's more of like a playlist, and they'll throw a few songs on here and there, which is cool. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But I personally don't feel like it's worth it for me to make a full length project until I have like a core following that's gonna, be there to like jump into it. As far as like EPs and stuff go though, I'm definitely I'll definitely probably do some of those before I do like a full length project.
Cool.
But I think just right now, as far as like marketing goes, like dropping singles is kind of makes the most sense for where I am right now.
And the album that you mentioned a few years ago, was that Stimulated? I think that
Yeah.
was cool. And you said it was kind of a concept album where it had a theme. What was the theme of that album?
So that was like I used to be prescribed Adderall, and that was kind of like my breakup with Adderall album. Like I
Interesting.
had the concept of Adderall I was referring to as Addison throughout the whole album. So it was like Addison was this girl that I was referring to, but it was really my
Cool.
relationship with Adderall. And I thought it was really cool and authentic, but like I just don't think a lot of people got it, which it is what it is. But that's one of the reasons, like I'm saying, I don't feel the need to do a full length project, because when I put a lot of time into that, and
Yeah.
it just felt like it wasn't the right time to do it.
You know what's interesting though? Because I can see the album thing and I can see the single thing too, and I actually sort of debate with myself, like, should I just be putting out songs, on a regular basis? And like, I don't do a lot of promotion, so my stuff probably isn't gonna like, I'm not expecting it to take off, but I just believe in creating, and that's sort of what we're meant to do, is put things out into the world, and then whatever happens, happens. But you've been hearing, or I've been hearing a lot about the way that people listen to music now. Old projects can be discovered as if they're new, because everybody has so much access to all of this music that's being recorded and uploaded. Like there's the song, I don't remember who it is right now, but she has a #1 song that she released in 1985, and it's #1 because it was used in Stranger Things this year. So it's a song from 85 that finally gets its due, right? So I think when you say like you recorded this album and you thought it was really cool, which I think the concept is awesome. I mean, the metaphor of Addison and Adderall, like that's brilliant, right? So maybe it's just the more you develop your fan base, the new people will discover that at some point, and it's brand new to them, even though to you it's like, I did that. You know what I mean? So
That's
I think it's
a
cool.
very good point, man. Because that, like, what an era we live in for that to even be possible.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, but that's so true. People could, because I guess it's the same way for me when I find an artist I like and I maybe hear some of their more recent stuff, but as I get more into them, I might go back and check something out from them like 5 years ago.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the world we live in too is the way that the technology feeds people content. You kind of never know when you somehow get picked up into somebody's algorithm and the right playlist shares it, or somebody just happens to play your song and then all of a sudden it adds more to their queue and like, here's a suggested song, you know what I mean? So I think, and especially since you believe in kind of the universe and all of that stuff, like put it out and see where it goes.
Yeah, 100%. I think at the end of the day too, like I've gotten a lot better with this, but it's just about, I just want to remember like why I do it in the first place, which is I enjoy it and I don't want to feel like I'm making it for anybody specifically. I want to make the stuff that I like. And when I'm ready to release it, what happens, and just leave it at that. And remembering to enjoy that process and why you started, I think is really important.
What do you want, besides obviously building a fan base, doing music full time? Is there a part of music making or a part of songwriting that you yourself would like to improve on or keep developing?
Oh, for sure. There's always room for improvement. I would say like everything I'd want to continue improving on. I guess like specifically what I would like to get better with would be producing, getting better with piano and like playing instruments and kind of understanding music theory too, so I can get to more of a point where I can approach things from an executive producer standpoint.
Sure.
As in, and this is, I guess I'm thinking more long term. This is somewhere I want to get to, because I think it'd be really cool to be in a room with a bunch of musicians who have live instruments and actually know how to play and kind of orchestrate a song that way with a bunch of people who can do certain parts. So I think generally, as far as improving, I just want to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to understand theory more, and just so I can be more hands-on with every aspect of making the music.
Cool. Obviously one of the reasons why I started this channel was, a lot of channels always show the people who are like already published, they're already making it, they have some level of success, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are, either just starting out, or maybe they don't have those like ambitions to go like, mainstream, very popular. So like if somebody's out there looking to get into, hip hop and the type of music that you do, like what sort of advice do you have for someone that is maybe at that first stage that you were at back in the day?
I would say kind of similar to what I mentioned before, is just I'm very big on the law of detachment, which is the idea of focusing on the intention and detaching from the outcome. So essentially, the advice I would give them is to love the process. Make sure you love the process and you're doing it for the right reasons, and focus on that. Become obsessed with just enjoying the process of making music, and don't worry too much about the initial response or how many plays you get or that sort of thing, just because especially when you start out, you can't really expect that to be that much of a response anyways, since you're just starting. So I would just say, yeah, just like love the process and love making music and love that, and don't worry too much about the results, because if you love it, you're going to continue to do it regardless of the results.
Yes. And I think that's awesome, because that's always been my philosophy, because there have been times where I've chased the result a little bit more, or I've chased maybe trying to get certain publishers to like music, or tried to fit somebody else's box, right? And it never is as fulfilling and as fun as when I just kind of follow my own instinct and just do what I know is who I am. regardless of what happens when it's done, right? And so I think there's a ton of wisdom in the detachment theory when it comes to music, for sure. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, you totally get it. That's what it's all about.
What are you, as far as other artists, what are you listening to these days?
I'm trying to listen to more stuff outside of hip hop because
Cool.
for a lot of reasons, and I need to do a better job of this. I really do, because I feel like I haven't. There's so much music out there that like I just need to go back more and listen to older stuff, and take inspiration from where music is today, what it evolved from. But as far as what I'm listening to recently, uh, I'm kind of all over the place sometimes. Listen to like the new Kendrick album. I was really into that. I'm still listening to Mac a lot because he's got so much unreleased stuff that comes out. Um,
Cool.
I listen to a lot of current rappers. Like,
Cool. Awesome. Well, if people want to find your music and kind of what you've released, what's the best way for them to learn more about you and your music and listen and all of that good stuff?
I would say you can just Google Bowdizz, Bowdizz, and all the links for streaming services and whatnot. That'll kind of show up from there. Or if you're just trying to listen to my music, whatever platform you listen to music on, if you just type in Bowdizz, I should show up. If I don't, then I'm kind of slacking on my SEO. But yeah, and then like social media, it's at Bowdizz9, Bowdizz9.
Awesome. Well, Bowdizz, thanks for joining us at Home Songwriting. Any like parting advice or wisdom to pass along to other people who are writing music or creating music at home?
I would say just be open to the process. Be open to going off of the path that you think something needs to go. If you take, if certain inspirations lead you in a direction that you didn't think you were headed, just be open to that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. It was great to meet you, and I'm sure we'll go check out your music after this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Definitely looking forward to seeing this interview once it's done. Send me clips and stuff if you can.
For sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Jed.